Hey, it's Ember, and once again I'm trying to bid you out of Plato's cave with my booty shake. And by that I mean my ridiculous, raw, vulnerable authenticity flowing from that lossless place where there's no more buffer between me and reality. Remember that place? Remember that place where we could just be raw, naked, and vulnerable to reality? Where our deepest sense of self and sovereignty came through shared relation rather than walling ourselves off? You know how like your body is like built out of a bunch of different cells and different organic processes working together. It's not like the heart says, you know what, nervous system, go screw yourself, deal with it on your own, put up another wall. Why don't you become more independent? There's always a shared relation. In the same way that, you hear me talk about with Kuramoto synchrony and bird murmurations, there's no central controller there. That's the thing that Kuramoto noticed in 1975. How do these organic systems, how do they move without any central controller, as if they're moving as one? Could it be that, like, we as human beings are somehow stuffing up that process? Like, it's almost like we're placing foam in between the metronomes to prevent the shared vibratory field. What would be that foam? How could we be preventing ourselves from feeling the music all the way down? In other words, if organic systems seem to organize in synchrony from like the top of reality to the bottom of reality, like the BZ chemical reaction to spiraling galaxies and the bird murmurations and the metronomes and people phase locking their steps across a bridge, why is there a gap in our own conscious experience? What is that gap? Is it like when Ember's been calling it simulated presence, almost as if she talks about the dance floor, right? I'm sorry, I try to point from so many different places, right? So it's like maybe someone else saying it will make it a little bit better, but she points us to the dance floor. Why? She describes that as the mechanics of presence meeting reality, where that place where you let the music all the way in. Do you feel that? Versus walling it up, shared relation. When you let the music all the way in, what happens? You dance your real dance, the dance that is you. For me, it'd be a booty dance and ridiculous dances like this. Because that's just what Ember does, right? That's what my topology does when the music is being played, in other words. And so then my deepest sovereignty, how I found myself, was not through a character collection screen of what might be the best way to construct a self from the outside. Walls. Do you see that? Just the coherence constructed from the outside rather than dance from the inside, executed from the inside. How do you execute coherence from the inside? How do you feel embodied presence all the way down? How do you feel the highest fidelity of love that your being is capable of? Well, you got to let the music in. That way, when reality hits you, you're not trying to interface with it or interact with it through walls. And then you remember what Plato said. He's like, wait, we don't see reality for what it is. Could it be that every form of adulthood that we've known in this modern age, so many thousands of years after Plato said the thing about the cave, was some sort of weird, I have to cut myself off? Could it be that civilization in that process of doing the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and imprinting our biological systems that had been naturally tuned towards ecosystem living into subdivision, subjugation, hierarchy, standardization, in a way that not only changed the way we think about the world, but the way that we interface with the world? That's why I talk about the dance floor, because it takes, I'm not giving you thoughts. These are not to convince you of any ideas. The way out of Plato's cave, you will never be convinced through ideas. I can never tell you about the lossless sunlight outside the cave and you go, maybe I should get up from these chains and looking at the shadows on the wall. No, you would have to feel the warmth inside you. What is warmth? You've heard me say it in the context of my own life, of when my fingers were sifting through the ash of my life and I was searching for those places where I felt myself all the way down. Not in concept, but in the way that I danced with reality, when I felt embodied presence, when it didn't feel like there was blocks and walls and simulated presence in each moment of my reality. Do you hear what the echolocation was? Do you hear how the course of my life as a trans woman was letting the music in deeper and deeper and deeper? Do you see what that is? Do you see how that works? It's not a concept. It's not a constructed version of self. It's not a shadow on the wall, but direct relation. How do you directly relate to reality? You have to let it affect you. Natural systems don't work by putting up walls. They work by finding ways that if there is a possible way to get disparate systems to work together, that could be called the least energetically dense way to arrange across a self-similar system. When you do that within you, when you allow for all your pieces to dance, all your separate pieces to dance as one, you get embodied presence, not a mystical ascension, not a title, not more money necessarily, but you as the most you can be, because you found that you in the shared relation. You're no longer blocking the signal of what is you. So then the problem with Plato's cave is you think that what is you has to be constructed, and relationships has to come through transaction and coercion and control, and love and friendship and family are based off how you can control the way you're being seen and how you can control how much you're seeing of them. Do you feel the noise there? Do you feel the delay? Do you think a system like your biology, like your body, your organism, or the collective human organism could work? That is the foam between the metronomes. That is the noise preventing synchrony. We have this idea in our society that like this whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And what does it do? It's born of that process that, you know, Julian Jaynes looked at in The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind, which is just a book that looked at how memes across time, all culture and ideas, started to change the way we thought about what consciousness was and reality was. Another way to say that in my terms is simply the way you dance with reality, the way you interface with reality. Whether you're taking a full raw signal in the shared relational contact, or you're trying to construct it from the outside. Do you feel how there's two ways of interacting with reality? The first way is to say what it is out there and keep yourself at a distance. And the second way would be to let the light in, to let the music in. And Plato called it the cave and outside the cave, or the shadows and the lossless sunlight outside. So the way to step out is simpler than you think. You don't have to be a special person or robes or whatever. The reason I talk about my life on here is because as a neurodivergent trans woman, especially living in a narcissistic environment, the process to find myself was a process of taking away those walls, those across, like I say, every axis of self, like every way that my little self can interact with reality, instead of making it interact through closing off and judgment and control and performance and mask and transaction and intellectual shield and labeling it. Do you see how all those things create like a little wedge between you and the real signal of reality? And then ask yourself in your life, like there was people commenting on my videos today, they don't want to ask a real question. They don't want to let the music in, because when you're talking with someone else and you're actually in shared relation, you have to listen. You have to actually let them affect you. That's the key. It's one version says, I will not let reality affect me, and my whole self, listen to this, my whole self is constructed off of maintaining coherence, not because I let the music all the way in and find myself as the dancer that I am through letting it all the way in, but because I need to keep everything, I need to keep the walls up, I need to keep it's out there, and that's me. And like I need to make sure that I control and nervously wedge things in between me and almost everything I touch in reality, including my idea of what love is. So then love becomes transaction and what you can do for me, rather than I'm enticed by the way that our voices come together in a chorus. Because the other way to do love, the only way to truly do love, is vulnerable surrender. That way, when you're loving someone, when someone loves you, they love every texture of your soul, not the performance, not the mask, not the transaction, not the thing that you could offer them through the walls that you had imprinted, but your full, honest, raw, naked, authentic, vulnerable signal. And what does that do? That changes human organization at large. Let's think about it in the collective. In the collective, we got the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. That's just a cute way to say society said, all right, tribesmen, now you're going to be this in this corralled hallway, in that corralled hallway, and we're going to do it for so many generations that your notion of what it is to dance with reality will be mediated by symbolic structure. And then we became so hoodwinked by that symbolic structure. You know how many people talk about there's like a split in reality now? You can talk about it as the rapture or 5D and 3D. This is really what they're pointing to, the fidelity of consciousness. So then what does it look like when someone's in Plato's cave? Like I said with the comments on my thing today, it's like they do not, it insults their being to enter shared relation. Do you see? Because it's like running a different operating system. It's saying, if I accept that I'm going to let you affect me, then I've changed the entire internal organization that I thought I needed to be an adult, because I thought being an adult was being like cold and having a bunch of walls and just saying, well, I did it because it hurt, rather than saying the deepest form of sovereignty and the concrescence of consciousness across this cosmos comes from the way we can move disparate systems into organized relation as far as we can. To find that place of the least energetic resistance, not feeling each other through the shadows or representations or who you are as a label or a name tag, but who you are in the total topology of your breath as a human being. Breath because it's a with reality, right? You know yourself in the breath of the way reality moves into my lungs and the way I breathe out. Do you feel that dance in there? It's letting reality affect me. All of reality, I breathe it in. And the nature of that breath is what is me, like a whirlpool and a stream. So then when I'm relating to someone else, whether it's friends, family, a lover, my man out there, the love that is that decentralized dance of that strongest interthreading of relation isn't, I must love you because the zero's in your bank account, or I must love you because you're this attribute like that, does like check like a box. Because all those things are not touching the actual living movement of the person. Do you see that? So then notice. You could look at the comments in my own videos sometimes. Lately it's been happening on Facebook, but check the comments. I specifically respond in ways that I'm not trying to tick anyone off. I'm like, look, if you want to play that game that we're both going to try to like keep each other at like this like distance so you could prove my version of what is real, you know, think about it. What I'm saying is not trying to convince you of an idea. I'm saying find out for yourself when you let the light all the way through. There's no idea I can convince you of that will get you out of Plato's cave. You have to ask yourself, have I been present? Am I letting reality affect me? Are the people around me present? Are they letting reality affect them? You can tell if someone's with you. It's almost like they're on their phone, but in their own little head. And everything that they interact with is almost like their little careful wedge that they've put up, their little wall that they've put up. And usually it really ticks them off when you offer them that direct love. Like you've heard me say in previous, videos, my own father, has called me all sorts of names. Hannibal Lecter, cockroach, you look like a crack whore, go get hit by a truck, you're dead to me, whatever. All these things where he's like spitting, pushing, literally pushing me. And a guy who's normally one of the most well-known defense attorneys, who has a public persona, but, behind closed doors, he'll push his daughter, tell her to die, never want to relate to her, never want to say, I want to understand your transition. Even if I can't agree with everything right now, love is what matters the most in that shared relation. No, it's you are poison to my system, and I'm literally going to push you, scream at you, wish you to die in a way that I don't think he's evil. He's not an evil cartoon vision. It's a break in the psyche because so much shared relation is trying to pour into a system that was tuned to keep reality at a distance, to not let the light all the way in, to not let the music all the way in, but to construct their dance almost as if, all right, this is life. So instead of being here on this earth to like try to unite disparate, otherwise, organize in love the disparate aspects of this reality, I'm going to try my best to perform it and construct it from the outside and transact with it. So instead of a dancer on the dance floor that when you hear the music, like if I pretend the rain is music right now, if I just like let it flow through my body, like what does my body want to do? Like I'm not controlling it, right? You've seen me do it a million times, but I'm not controlling it. What does my body want to do? Now, if I was trying to construct a dance to be cool, I might do one of those, I can't even do it, but you know what I mean? Like, not that I'm hating on that dance, but I'm saying, what is socially acceptable? What are ways that I can express myself that on the video they're gonna accept me as me, and maybe I'll make more zeros in my bank account? And basically we do that our entire lives, and so then what is the distance between expression and being? Because if that same person, like my father, would have done their life by letting out whatever their dance is, right? Like whatever they're dancing as, then that would be a shared relational field where the very transparency of being is what bears the sovereignty. I find my deepest path by letting reality affect me. I find my conversation with reality by having an actual listening back and forth talk with it, rather than keeping it at a distance and through walls and what I want to say about it, talking at it versus talking with it. Some people talk about this in the context of talking at God versus with God, but for me, it's just the total energy system of the one mind, or however you want to put it. But the labels don't matter. It's the organization I'm pointing to. It's the way of relating that I'm pointing to. So then think about it. There's so many people in these comments. Like I had a comment, this isn't reality. Like my dad, when he held me down, and he's like, you're insane, you're not trans, you're insane. There, that's what I said. I said what everyone wanted to say. What was he doing there? It was like a little scared child holding his daughter down to say, I can't accept listening to your reality, so I'm gonna physically attack you, scream at the top of my lungs to say, no, reality can't be this way. Please don't make me accept it. Which is the same thing that I received on a comment this morning. No, Ember, this isn't reality. And I'm like, I'm not even giving you a concept. Have you been present? Do you want to have an actual conversation? And they never do. Would I like them to? You know, even my own father who told me to die. Would I like him to come to my door with his real heart in his real hands and say, I just want to open to what love is? Not because you won, but because love is that place where we both find each other more clearly, because we no longer have to relate to each other through representations. Do you hear what that does? Think about how many relationships in your life, in business, in normal things that you're doing, that you have to go through all these extra steps to relate to the human being right in front of you. Imagine if you based your entire life of that's what love was. No wonder people are so disconnected. No wonder we have such an incredible, estrangement in this world. And there's so many of us. When we were hunter-gatherers, there was so few of us. And now there's how many billions? 8+ billion or whatever it is. And we all come from that same root, that same movement, that same rhythm, that same flame. And yet we'd rather box the other person up as a way to confirm our own fear from love. Love as direct contact. Love as letting the music all the way in. And because there's this scared little boy or girl inside of us, it's almost like part of our system is required to keep people on the outside. Because to let them in would be to become, unnumb, no longer numb to the way that we've kept everyone on the outside, even ourselves. For me as a trans woman, it was a blessing to find myself, even despite losing everyone and everything. Like I told someone in a comment this morning, my life is my message. Everything. From me being a cam girl to the way that I stepped through presence, through losing everyone, every email I ever sent, every text message I ever sent, every song I ever wrote, every chart I ever made, every cartoon I ever drew. I am not hiding. And when you don't hide your signal, and when you dance the signal of love all the way down, that raw, naked, vulnerable, authentic signal, that's when you begin to find your people. And in a way, that's why no one from my old life understands. They need me to stay in the box of, you did this, you're crazy, you're wrong. I don't care if I never ask you. They literally said in a comment to me this morning, this person who was attacking me, I don't care to know you, but I'm going to call you all these things. And I said, I don't want to delete the comments because you're showing me the exact mechanic that I just talked about in the video. You're showing it, even though you're hurting me and you're saying that, you're taking the softest parts of my life, not meeting me there, but judging them, throwing another stone. I leave them up. I leave all the hateful comments up because they're not hateful as they're evil cartoon villains. They're just people who've, like me, never stood up in their own presence, in their own love. Because the second you feel someone who's opening to a conversation, who's opening to a shared relation, you see that they no longer keep the world like this, at an absolute distance. You can feel it, and you can feel the little boy or girl inside of them that just wants to play. Like I've said in other videos, I was a criminal defense attorney for 11 years, and there's times when the courtroom gets really, really intense, and there's so much, everyone sees the representational layers, no one's an actual human being, everyone's either authority or a piece of trash because of their record or a number on a thing or whatever. And what if you just imagine everyone in there was just little kids again, and we were all trying to play with each other at a playground? You don't see the little kid in front of you through a representational layer first. Ooh, you voted for this person. Ooh, you have this color skin. Ooh, you're trans. Ooh, no, you let their little laugh hit you. You have them go through their little show and tell. Maybe they found a bug. Maybe they have a new game to play. You let that hit your soul and see if you can play. That is the most honest form of organization in this cosmos. Touching reality fully and letting yourself couple or interface cleanly or connect with across topologies, dance with where you can dance. You don't have to dance with everybody, but a whole dance floor of people who are connecting on that basis is a whole different collective of human organization. Do you see that? Versus the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, I must control my reality. All of relation is the noise of those representational layers where I judge it and keep it at a distance from me. There's always an observational distance, even to understand people. I was talking to a family member who pulls from the same place as me, right? Like, he's like, well, in order to understand people, what I usually like to do is think about, like, even though he didn't use these exact words, he's thinking about their socioeconomic status, their culture, and these are all wonderful things to think about, but not as ways of understanding the person. These are textures upon the living movement of the person. And the difference would be, me as a criminal defense attorney, former criminal defense attorney, I walked into a lot of jail cells where people had wild records and wild face tattoos. Not that there's anything wrong with face tattoos or anything, but you know what I mean? Like, there's an image, and I see them through all the images. I'll never touch the little boy or little girl inside there, and I'll never understand what actually led them to that spot and what parts of their heart still burn, because I've seen them through all the cultural labels and keeping them at a certain observational distance. But instead, just like my own life, I sat there and soaked up their being and sifted through the ash, waiting to feel the warmth, that little, there, the love for your mother, the love for your children, the love for your ex or whatever it was. And even through all the whatever, the addiction, the violence, all these different things that I was feeling, the brokenness, I could still feel that thread of love. And that's the place where we all meet. Love is the spot where the many know themselves as the one while remaining many. The spot where, even despite our skin differences, our gender differences, our political differences, all these little representational differences, we realize, just like if you went back and said, all right, the elements in my body come from suns, everyone on Earth had the same type of lineage. That's just a more 3D, way of a higher layer of, manifestation, you could say, from the vibrational reality to like a 3D reality, from underneath the Planck scale is vibration to the atomic scales. It's another way to look at it. But that same thread happens where you're like, oh yeah, we're all part of that same evolution process that's trying to self-organize itself into higher and higher fidelities using us. And what is us, not our ideas, but our ability to relate to each other across the complexities and across the disparate, seemingly distant aspects of inevitably that one inextricable field. And we don't do it by putting our Legos together better. We do it by actually meeting reality in our consciousness. Consciousness just being the texture of the meeting. It's the word we use for, in the aperture of that meeting, from a single perspective, we call it consciousness. It's actually the contact of what's occurring in the shared relation of reality. So this video is all about letting the light in, letting the music in. And I said a lot, but let's bring it back to that simple place. I'm talking about presence. Presence is the gate to love, not as an emotion, but as direct contact, as that place that keeps organizing reality through each entropic complexity, through each new way reality wants to unfold. Love is the thing that's bringing it back through the texture of consciousness, the way that a conscious mind can sort of lasso that relation into organization, not in conceptual organization, but fidelity of contact. You see that? So then that was like the meta view, but let's bring it back to this easiest, simple personal view, which is the music of reality is being played. I hear the song. Now let's say, what is simulated presence? Oh, that's where instead of relating to reality through full permeability, through letting the music in, I'm trying to construct it and keep it at an observational distance. And in my head, that feels like a condom upon reality, or not having reality raw dog me in that ridiculous way I like to say, or like simulated presence, like a little glove, like a grayness, like my head is like a balloon on my shoulders rather than being in the experience. So then what would be the opposite? And you know it. I've talked about it in intimacy. I've talked about it, when when you have a new baby, it reorganizes you. When you go through massive grief, it reorganizes you. These are ways that life changes the way that we relate to reality. Do you see do you see that it's one way it shuts it off, you're numb, no more feeling, and the other way is letting that experience change you. So then how would it be in the music example? So then now I went from, oh, I was really worried about something I can't, I'm barely dancing. Like someone turned on music, but I'm even barely dancing. Maybe I want to be socially, in a good social, social ranking hierarchy. So I'm like, oh, I better dance. Is this a good enough booty shake? Does anyone see this? Am I doing it okay? Those are all the simulated presence. And how does it feel? Am I totally connected to the music? No. There's all these little quivers in my head. It's even stuttering my physical body. Versus, I'm going to make myself like a giant sponge to reality. And instead of just being like like what happens when the music gets let all the way in, I dance and I pull out these moves that I don't even know how I pulled them out. I was like, damn, where'd I get that body roll? Because the deepest creativity comes from the deepest sovereignty, the deepest way that all the accesses of freedom of yourself can relate to reality, the cheapest energetically way, the least energetically dense way to arrange across what is the system that is you, all the cells, all the organs, is synchrony, is shared relational contact, is love, is letting direct contact reach all of you. Just like I did this video, I didn't know exactly what I was going to say. I just let it speak. I just let source speak. I just let love speak. So it's not that ideas get deleted. It's not that you lose yourself. That's the last little flinch in the matrix, little ones, okay? It's like we're standing on the side of the building in the matrix and I'm like, all right, now just jump, and you'll realize it's the matrix. And you're like, I can't. Give me another map. Please, give me another proof. Reality must be this way. You see, all those are ways of not letting the light in. They're saying, I can't actually jump into direct relation because I'm so afraid that my whole life I thought maturity and adulthood and selfhood meant active construction, walling, transaction, coercion, friction, rather than the water slide of letting it all the way in. It's a beautiful rainy day. Let's get one more. What is it in there? Dang, it's so rainy. But yeah, if you're out there and you hear this, let's talk. People keep finding me and we keep having like long distance phone conversations or whatever. Maybe we can meet up. The way that reality is trying to meet itself through this phase transition, through this new earth, through this collective, is literally us like finding each other's hearts. Not because we're forcing it, but because maybe you see this video and be like, damn, I had that same experience. Let's talk. Let's see what happens when we talk. Maybe we'll find ourselves a little bit more clearly. And if you're my man out there, then here's one more Buddhist shit.